Turning 18 is supposed to feel like freedom. I remember waking up that morning with my heart racing, thinking this was finally my day. After years of feeling invisible in my own home, I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would see me differently now that I was officially an adult. But when I walked downstairs expecting birthday wishes, I found my parents and my sister Janelle sitting at the kitchen table with faces like stone. There was no cake, no balloons, just a packed suitcase by the door with my name on it. Before I share what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how this story ends. Let me take you back to how my family got to that point. Growing up in our two-story house in suburban Ohio, I always knew something was off about how our family worked. My dad managed a construction company and my mom did part-time accounting work. From the outside, we looked like any normal American family. But inside those walls, there was an unspoken rule that everyone followed. Janelle came first. Always. My sister was 3 years older than me, and from the moment I can remember, she was the golden child. She had this way about her. Blonde hair, bright smile, and a personality that lit up every room she walked into. She knew exactly what to say to make our parents beam with pride. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one. I preferred books over parties, video games over social gatherings. I kept to myself, and somehow that made me less worthy of attention. The differences in how we were treated became painfully obvious as we grew up. When Janelle turned 10, my parents threw her a massive birthday party. I am talking 30 kids from her class, a rented clown balloon animals, the whole deal. They transformed our backyard into a carnival. When my 10th birthday came around, we had a store-bought cake from the supermarket and ate dinner in the kitchen. Just the four of us. No friends invited, no decorations. When I asked why my party was different, my mom just said that Janelle had more friends, and it made sense to celebrate bigger for her. That pattern continued year after year. When Janelle turned 16, my parents surprised her with a used Honda Civic. It was not new, but it was hers. She screamed with excitement and hugged them for what felt like an hour. When I turned 16, I got a handshake from my dad and $20. I ended up working nights at a pizza place just to save up for anything I wanted. Nobody offered to help me buy a car. Nobody even suggested it. School was the same story. Janelle was never a great student. She scraped by with C grades and occasional D marks. But whenever she brought home a bad report card, my parents would just shrug and say she needed to try a little harder next time. No punishment, no consequences. When I brought home a B+ once instead of my usual A grades, my dad looked at me with disappointment and asked why I could not be more like my sister. The irony was lost on him completely. I learned to accept my place in the family. I told myself that maybe I just was not good enough. Maybe I did not deserve the same love and attention. It sounds sad now, but when you grow up hearing the same message over and over, you start to believe it. As Janelle got older, her true character started showing more clearly. She became manipulative, entitled, and completely comfortable with lying to get what she wanted. She knew our parents would believe anything she said, and she used that power without mercy. I remember one Thanksgiving when I was 14. Our grandmother had given our mother a beautiful antique vase that had been in our family for generations. It sat on a shelf in the living room, and we were never supposed to touch it. One afternoon, Janelle was showing off for some friends she had brought over. She grabbed the vase to use as a prop for some story she was telling, and it slipped from her hands, shattered into 100 pieces on the hardwood floor. When our parents came home, Janelle did not hesitate. She pointed straight at me and said I had been throwing a ball in the house and knocked it over. I was in my room reading when it happened. I had witnesses. Her friends were right there. But when I tried to defend myself, my parents shut me down. They believed Janelle without question. I was grounded for 2 weeks and had to pay for the vase out of my pizza job savings. Over $300. Her friends never said a word to correct the lie. Neither did Janelle. After that, I stopped trying to fight it. I just counted down the days until I turned 18 and could finally leave. I threw myself into my studies, earned good grades, and applied to every scholarship I could find. When I got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship, I felt like I could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Just 3 more months after my birthday, and I would be free. I had no idea that my freedom would come much sooner than planned, and in the most painful way possible. The morning of my 18th birthday started with hope. I woke up early, took a shower, and actually spent time picking out a nice shirt to wear. I had been hinting for months that I needed a laptop for college. My old computer was dying, and I thought maybe just this once my parents would come through for me. After all, turning 18 is a big deal. It is the moment you become a legal adult. Surely that meant something. I walked downstairs with a smile on my face, ready to finally feel like I mattered. But the scene that greeted me stopped me cold. My parents sat at the kitchen table, their faces tight with tension. Janelle sat across from them, her eyes red and puffy like she had been crying. No cake, no presents, no birthday banner, just thick, uncomfortable silence. My mom gestured for me to sit down. Her voice was strained when she spoke. She said they needed to talk to me about something important. My dad would not even look at me. He just stared at his coffee cup like it held all the answers in the world. Then Janelle dropped the bomb. She was pregnant, 4 months along. The father was her boyfriend Brad, some guy she had been seeing for about 6 months. I had met Brad a few times. He worked odd jobs when he felt like it, spent most of his time drinking with his buddies, and never seemed to have any real plans for his life. Apparently, when Janelle told him about the baby, he packed up and disappeared, just vanished without a trace. Janelle started crying again, going on about how scared she was and how much she needed her family to support her. My parents nodded along, sympathetically reaching out to hold her hands. I sat there wondering what any of this had to do with my birthday. Then my mom explained their plan. Janelle was going to move back home. She needed a bigger room for when the baby came, somewhere with space for a crib and changing table. My room was the largest bedroom besides the master. It had good natural light and was right next to the bathroom. It would be perfect for Janelle and the baby. I felt my stomach drop. I asked where I was supposed to go. My dad finally looked at me then. His expression was not cruel, but it was not kind either. He said I was 18 now, a legal adult. I could take care of myself. Janelle needed them more than I did. I could not believe what I was hearing. I tried to reason with them. I pointed out that I had already been accepted to college. I just needed to stay 3 more months until the dorms opened. I would stay out of their way. I would help with Janelle. I would do anything. But my mom just shook her head. She said they had already made their decision. This was what was best for the family. Then she handed me a suitcase. I recognized it as the one we used for family vacations years ago, back when we actually did things together. She had already packed my clothes and a few personal items, my whole life condensed into one medium-sized bag. My dad reached into his wallet and pulled out some cash. He counted it out slowly and handed it to me. $200. He said it was all they could spare right now, with the baby coming and everything. $200 to start my adult life. $200 for 18 years of being their son. I looked at Janelle, hoping maybe she would say something. Maybe she would tell them this was too far, that they could figure out another solution. But she just looked down at the table, and for a split second I caught something on her face. A tiny smirk, barely visible, gone almost as soon as it appeared. She was enjoying this. After years of being the favorite, she had finally gotten rid of me completely. I stood up from that table feeling like I was in a nightmare. I looked around the room at the family photos on the walls. Most of them were of Janelle. Her school portraits, her cheerleading photos, her prom pictures. I had to search to find any evidence that I existed in this family at all. A few group shots where I stood in the background. One Christmas photo where you could barely see my face behind Janelle in her new dress. I picked up that suitcase and walked out the front door. Nobody followed me. Nobody called out to wish me happy birthday. The door closed behind me with a quiet click, and just like that, my life as part of that family was over. I walked for hours that first day, dragging my suitcase behind me like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I had nowhere to go and no real plan. The $200 in my pocket felt like both a lifeline and an insult. I kept replaying the morning in my head, trying to figure out if there was something I could have said or done differently. But deep down, I knew it would not have mattered. Their choice had been made long before I walked down those stairs. I called a few friends from school trying to find somewhere to crash. Most of them were sympathetic, but unhelpful. Still living with their own parents. No room for an extra person. Sorry, man, that really sucks. By evening, I found myself sitting at a bus shelter with my suitcase beside me. The temperature dropped as the sun went down, and I realized I might actually have to sleep there. That night was one of the loneliest of my life. Every sound made me jump. Every passing car felt like a threat. I curled up on that hard bench with my jacket pulled tight and tried to convince myself that things would get better. They had to get better. The next morning, I swallowed my pride and called my grandparents. My mom's parents had always seemed nice enough at holidays, and I thought maybe they would help. But when I explained what happened, my grandmother's response broke my heart all over again. She said that family had to make sacrifices for each other. Janelle was in trouble and needed support. I was a young man now, and I should understand that. She told me to be patient and give my parents time to come around. I hung up without saying goodbye. With no family willing to help, I turned to the only other adult I trusted. Mr. Patterson was my school guidance counselor. He had helped me with my college applications and always seemed genuinely interested in how I was doing. I showed up at school early the next day, still carrying my suitcase, and knocked on his office door. The look on his face when I told him my story is something I will never forget. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to genuine anger on my behalf. He said he had been a counselor for 22 years and thought he had heard everything. But a family throwing out their child on his 18th birthday for a pregnant sibling was a new low even for him. Mr. Patterson spent the next few hours making phone calls. He connected me with youth services, explained my situation to anyone who would listen, and eventually found me a placement in an emergency foster program for young adults between 18 and 21. That afternoon, I met Linda. Linda was a widow in her late 50s who had been taking in young people through this program for over a decade. Her own kids were grown and gone, and she had turned her empty nest into a refuge for those of us who had nowhere else to go. Her house was modest, but warm, filled with mismatched furniture and the smell of whatever she was cooking that day. She did not ask me a lot of questions that first night. She showed me to a small bedroom in the back of her house, pointed out where the towels were kept, and told me dinner would be ready in an hour. Then she said something that made me have to fight back tears. She said I was safe here. Whatever happened to bring me to her door, I did not have to worry about it tonight. Tonight I could just rest. I stayed with Linda for the next 3 months. During that time, I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I picked up 2 part-time jobs. Mornings I worked at a diner near downtown, pouring coffee and taking orders from the early crowd. Evenings I was back at a different pizza place, making deliveries until close. Every dollar I made went into savings for college. Mr. Patterson continued to be my advocate at school. He helped me apply for additional financial aid, wrote letters explaining my circumstances, and connected me with emergency funds I did not even know existed. Thanks to him, my scholarship was adjusted to cover more of my expenses. I would be able to afford the dorms after all. I made a decision during those months that shaped everything that followed. I cut off all contact with my parents and Janelle. I did not call them. I did not answer when they occasionally reached out. I blocked their numbers and deleted them from my social media. If they wanted me gone from their lives, I would give them exactly what they asked for. But I would not let them have the satisfaction of watching me struggle. That summer, I moved into my dorm room at State University. I showed up with the same suitcase I had left home with, plus a few boxes of things Linda had helped me collect. She hugged me goodbye and made me promise to call her every week. I kept that promise for years. College was a fresh start. Nobody there knew about my family or my past. I was just another freshman trying to find his way. I threw myself into my studies, joined a few clubs, and slowly started to rebuild my sense of self-worth. For the first time in my life, I was being judged on my own merits, not compared to a sister who could do no wrong. The pain did not disappear overnight. There were nights when I would lie in my dorm room and wonder what I had done to deserve being thrown away like garbage. There were moments when I saw other students with their parents during move-in weekend and felt that familiar ache of being unwanted. But little by little, I learned to fill those empty spaces with people who actually cared about me. Friends who chose me, mentors who believed in me, a foster mother who showed me what unconditional support actually looked like. By the time I graduated 4 years later, I had transformed my life completely. I earned my degree in accounting with honors. I had internships on my resume and job offers waiting. I moved to Columbus and started working at a well-respected firm. Within 2 years, I had my own apartment, my own car, and a career that I was genuinely proud of. I stayed close with Linda through all of it. She came to my graduation beaming like I was her own son. In many ways, I was. She had given me something my biological parents never could: the belief that I was worthy of love simply for being myself. 4 years of silence ended with an email. It arrived on a random Tuesday afternoon while I was at work. The subject line just said, "Family News." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a wedding invitation. Janelle was getting married to someone named Derek. According to the attached message from my mother, Derek owned a car dealership and was very successful. Janelle had finally found a good man who could provide for her and her daughter. Yes, she had kept the baby, a little girl named Lily, who was now almost 4 years old. My mother wrote that it was time to put the past behind us. Families should be together for important moments. She hoped I would come. I stared at that email for a long time. My first instinct was to delete it and pretend I never saw it. These people had thrown me out like trash. They had chosen Janelle over me without a second thought. Why should I give them the satisfaction of showing up to watch her get her fairy tale ending? But as the days passed, I kept thinking about it. Not because I wanted to reconcile with them. I had made peace with the fact that my biological family would never be what I needed them to be. I thought about it because I realized I was still carrying anger that I had not fully dealt with. Maybe going to this wedding would give me closure. Maybe seeing them all again from a position of success and stability would help me finally let go of the hurt. I sent back a reply saying I would attend. Then I bought a new suit and prepared myself for whatever was coming. The wedding was held at a country club outside of our hometown. Nothing too fancy, but nicer than I expected. I pulled into the parking lot in my Accord, took a deep breath, and walked inside like I belonged there. Because I did. I was invited whether they expected me to actually show up or not. The look on my parents' faces when they saw me was almost worth the trip by itself. My mother's eyes went wide. My father's jaw actually dropped. They were expecting the broken teenager they had kicked out 4 years ago. Instead, they got a confident young professional in a tailored suit who met their gaze without flinching. My mom rushed over to hug me, already talking about how much she had missed me, how she had thought about me every day. I let her hug me, but I did not return it with any real warmth. I was polite, I was civil, but I was not going to pretend that everything was fine. The ceremony itself was standard. Janelle walked down the aisle in a white dress, looking every bit the blushing bride. Derek stood at the altar, a stocky man in his mid-30s with a confident smile. He looked successful, I will give him that. The kind of guy who had done well for himself and wanted everyone to know it. During the reception, my relatives kept approaching me with surprised comments about how well I was doing. Word had apparently spread about my career, my apartment, my life. I answered their questions politely without giving too much away. I was not there to impress them. I was there for myself. Everything changed about halfway through the reception. The dinner had been served, and people were mingling between tables when the doors to the banquet hall burst open. A woman I had never seen before stormed in holding the hand of a small boy who looked about 2 years old. She marched straight toward the head table where Janelle and Derek were sitting. Her voice was loud enough for the entire room to hear. She called Derek by name and demanded to know if he thought he could just pretend she did not exist. The room went silent. Derek's face turned pale. Janelle looked confused, then horrified as the pieces started to come together. The woman did not stop. She announced to everyone that she had been seeing Derek for 3 years. That little boy was his son. Derek had promised her that he was going to leave Janelle, that the wedding was just for show to keep up appearances. He had told her they would be together after everything settled down. Derek tried to deny it at first, but the woman had receipts, screenshots of messages, photos of them together. A paternity test she waved in the air. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Janelle started screaming at Derek. Derek started screaming back. The other woman kept adding fuel to the fire with more revelations. Guests were pulling out their phones to record the chaos. My parents tried to intervene, but there was no stopping the avalanche. Within 20 minutes, the wedding was effectively over. Derek had fled out a side door. Janelle was sobbing in a bathroom somewhere. Guests were leaving in clusters, whispering among themselves about what they had just witnessed. The perfect fairy tale ending my sister had planned had turned into a complete disaster. I watched it all unfold from my seat near the back. I did not feel happy about what happened. I did not feel vindicated or triumphant. Mostly I just felt tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the dysfunction. Tired of being connected to people who seemed destined to create chaos wherever they went. A week after the wedding disaster, my parents showed up at my apartment in Columbus. I do not know how they got my address. Probably from one of the relatives I had spoken to at the reception. I considered not answering the door, but I figured I might as well hear what they had to say. My mother looked older than I remembered. There were lines on her face that had not been there 4 years ago. My father seemed diminished somehow, like the confidence that once defined him had leaked away. They sat on my couch and fumbled through an apology that was years too late. My mother said they had made a terrible mistake. They should never have chosen between their children. They should never have kicked me out. They had been so focused on Janelle and her problems that they lost sight of everything else. She said she understood if I could never forgive them, but she needed me to know that she was sorry. My father echoed her words, though his came out more stilted. He said he had failed me as a father. He did not have any excuses. He just hoped that someday I could find it in my heart to give them another chance. I listened to everything they said. I did not interrupt. I did not argue. When they finished, I sat in silence for a long moment, gathering my thoughts. Then I told them the truth. I said I did not hate them. I had spent years being angry, but I had worked through most of it. Holding on to that rage was only hurting me, not them. So I had chosen to let it go. But I also told them that forgiveness and reconciliation were not the same thing. I could forgive them for my own peace of mind without inviting them back into my life. And I needed them to be honest with themselves. If Janelle's wedding had gone perfectly, would they ever have reached out to me? If she was happily married to Derek, right now would they be sitting in my apartment apologizing? Or would I still be the forgotten son they threw away? Neither of them could answer that question. Their silence told me everything I needed to know. I told them I needed more time. Maybe someday we could have some kind of relationship. But it would never be what it was before, because what it was before was broken and unhealthy. If they wanted me in their lives, they would have to earn it. And that process would have to start with them, not with me making it easy for them. They left that night with tears in their eyes. I closed the door behind them and felt something I had not expected. Relief. I had said what I needed to say. The rest was up to them. Janelle, from what I heard through the family grapevine, ended up back at our parents' house. She was raising Lily alone now, living in my old bedroom, dependent on the same parents who had enabled her worst behaviors for her entire life. Derek had disappeared completely, just like Brad had years before. Some patterns, it seems, never change. I do not take pleasure in her struggles. She is still my sister, even if we will probably never have a real relationship. I hope she finds her way eventually. I hope Lily grows up in a healthier environment than we did. But I also know that those hopes are not my responsibility to fulfill. I did my time trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it freely. I am done with that chapter of my life. These days, I am focused on building something better, I have a career I am proud of, friends who value me, and a foster mother who taught me what family can really mean when it is done right. I call Linda every Sunday just like I promised. She is getting older now, but her spirit is still as warm as ever. Looking back on everything that happened, I have come to understand something important. The people who are supposed to love you the most can sometimes hurt you the worst. But that pain does not have to define you. You have the power to write your own story, to build your own family, to create a life that reflects who you truly are, rather than who others tried to make you. My parents threw me out on my 18th birthday because they thought my sister needed them more. In doing so, they gave me an unexpected gift. They forced me to discover my own strength. They showed me that I could survive and thrive without their approval. They taught me through their absence how to be present for myself. Forgiveness is not about letting people off the hook for their actions. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying that anger forever. I have forgiven my parents not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. And sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is simply living well. Building a life so full and meaningful that the people who doubted you become nothing more than distant memories. That is the revenge I chose. And honestly, it feels pretty good. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to walk away from family to find yourself? Have you ever been forced to choose between your own well-being and people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you want more stories like this one. Your support means more than you know. Thank you for listening to my story. Whatever you are going through right now, I hope you remember that you are worthy of love and respect, not because of what you do or how you compare to others, but simply because you exist. Take care of yourselves out there. I will see you in the next one.